Welcome to part 32 of our series, Secrets of Glessner House. In this installment, we will consider the arch, an iconic component of Glessner House specifically, and the Richardsonian Romanesque style in general. The arch is an essential element of Romanesque architecture. Henry Hobson Richardson studied countless examples during the first half of the 1860s, traveling around Europe during his years studying at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. It appeared in many iterations on his buildings throughout his career. The Cheney Building in Hartford, Connecticut, shown at left, is a good example of his arches where the individual segments, known as voussoirs, are composed of two alternating colors of stone, emphasizing the arch's construction. The entrance to Austin Hall on the campus of Harvard University, shown at right, displays arches grouped together for maximum impact. At left, we see the entrance to the Billings Memorial Library on the campus of the University of Vermont in Burlington. The masonry units at each end of the arch are known as the imposts. Note how close they are to the level of the porch. Constructing the arch in this way increases its feeling of massiveness and solidity. The facade of the Oliver Ames Free Library in northeastern Massachusetts, at right, shows a variety of arches used for the entrance and the openings for the windows and tower above. All are of different scale and proportion, but work together to create a unified whole. The dramatic arch framing the female servants' entrance on the north side of Glessner House, seen at left, appears to have always been a part of the design, as it shows up in some form on all renderings. This particular drawing shows, however, that for a period of time, a corresponding arch was considered for the entrance to the coach house, seen at the right. That idea was abandoned fairly early in the design process. At Glessner House, we immediately associate the arch with the front entrance to the house. But as seen in this early rendering, it was not always part of the design. The front entrance here is shown in a traditional rectangular form, slightly recessed. The block of small windows shown above the doorway was intended to illuminate a conservatory planned for the first floor. An arched front entrance does appear on many of the drawings of the front facade, although it takes a while for it to take on its final form. This version of the arch is similar to what we find on the house today, although the entry door beneath it is still recessed. This rough sketch shows the most extensive use of the arch on the front facade, with the doorway filling the arch, supported to either side with engaged columns. Above, an arcade of small windows provides the necessary light for the planned conservatory beyond. In this late drawing, we see the front arch in its final form. Note the exaggerated size of the voussoirs surrounding the delicately carved tympanum. These large voussoirs appear on a number of Richardson's buildings in the last few years of his life. So where did the idea originate? In 1882, Richardson made his final trip to Europe. After spending time with William Morris in England, he headed for the continent, visiting countless examples of the Romanesque, reinforcing his commitment to the style and introducing him to details he had not previously seen. Here we see one of the many sites he visited, the Church of Saint Nectaire in the Auvergne region of central France. Traveling to Spain, he spent a brief period of time in the city of Salamanca, in the western portion of the country. While there, he was struck by the use of enormous voussoirs, designed at a scale far beyond what was needed structurally. A particularly notable example is the Casa La Dona Maria La Brava, shown here, which was constructed in the late 15th century. The voussoirs extend nearly the entire width of the facade. Richardson purchased this image to add to his growing collection of reference photographs he maintained in his office. This image of the front entrance was taken by George Glessner shortly after the family moved into their new home in December 1887. Looking at the 15 voussoirs surrounding the tympanum, one can see how the house in Salamanca clearly influenced the final design of this arch. It also influenced the design of the extraordinary female servants' entrance on the north side of the house. The imaginary horizontal line where the arch begins to curve is known as the springing line and is set low, increasing the visual impact of the arch. But most significantly, the 29 voussoirs are huge, measuring 45 inches in length. The arch appears even more massive from the inside, as it opens into a small, confined porch and stairway. Here we can also see that the voussoirs are 20 inches thick, the clearest indication on the house of the thickness of the exterior walls. Similar arches appear on Richardson's Allegheny County Courthouse and Jail in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, under construction at the same time as Glessner House. The arch over this entrance bears a striking similarity to the front entrance on the house, and is even constructed with the same number of voussoirs. Likewise, this enormous arch opening into a courtyard space shares nearly identical proportions to the Glessner House servants' entrance. That entrance was captured in this beautiful image by George Glessner, the silhouette of the cook carefully positioned in the window. A specific element of the arch is the low wall extending from the left, which conceals the stairway up to the kitchen entrance. This is not the only time Richardson designed an arch in this manner. Here we see the facade of the Rectory of Trinity Church in Boston, completed in 1880. The basic concept is exactly the same, although the arch and its staircase are more open and inviting, as this is the main front entrance to the house, rather than being a secondary servants' entrance. The idea was carried forward into the 20th century by architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who absorbed a great deal from Richardson during the time he worked in the office of Adler and Sullivan. In Wright's 1948 design for the V.C. Morris gift shop in San Francisco, he takes the basic form and uses it as a ground-level entrance into the shop. The low wall extending from the right supports a large built-in planter, and the huge stone voussoirs are replaced with Wright's narrow Roman bricks. The least celebrated and perhaps most dramatic use of oversized voussoirs occurs around this third-floor window on the north side of Glessner House, which illuminated a portion of the butler's apartment. Note the proportion of the voussoirs in relation to the diminutive transom over the slender, double-hung window. As prominent as the arch is on the exterior of the house, it is noticeably absent on the interior. Richardson frequently used arches inside his buildings, so why is it absent at Glessner House? The answer is provided by Frances Glessner, who notes in her journal that during her first meeting with Richardson in May 1885, she asked him to preserve the cozy feeling of the house they were living in at the time. The arch is beautiful and dramatic, but does not convey coziness. Richardson designed 2 houses for friends of the Glessners at the same time as their own home, and both feature interior arches. Here we see the triple arch in the house of Franklin and Emily McVeigh, located on the 1400 block of Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. Composed of marble and onyx, it separated the dining room and conservatory. For the Washington, D.C. home of John Glessner's business partner, Benjamin Warder, stone arches were used in the dining room, separating the space from the adjacent picture gallery. Additional arches were used to separate the entry hall and stair hall. Neither interior survives today, although the facade of the Warder House has been repurposed. Up to this point, we have looked at arches set above door, entries, and windows. But here we see an example of a relieving arch, also known as a discharging arch. As the name suggests, the function of this arch is to distribute the weight of the masonry above so that it does not press down upon the lintel below. One example can be found on Glessner House, above the hayloft door facing 18th Street. Note how the arch is just a little wider than the lintel below it. Richardson used relieving arches throughout his career. Here is an example on the North Congregational Church in Springfield, Massachusetts, one of his earliest designs. The arch, located at the base of a tall gable wall, distributes the considerable weight of the masonry away from the lintels over the small basement windows. Relieving arches are categorized as blind arches, as they are almost always filled in with masonry beneath the arch. In the earlier image of the relieving arch on the Glessner coach house, the dovecote above it was clearly visible, and here we find the last use of the arch on the house, a series of 9 niches for nesting. Even the avian residents of the house benefited from Richardson's love of the arch. We hope you have enjoyed learning more about the arch and how its ultimate uses on the exterior of the house reflect Richardson's design process. Tune in next time when another secret will be revealed.